Uh, on average, over the course of a business leader's career, how many times do you think a person may be called upon to make these defining decisions? Is it just once, or did you speak to any CEOs who had to do it more than once?
Some of them had more than one defining moment decision, and it was a question of which was the most important. Shelley Lazarus, who's the CEO of Ogilvy and Mather, which is one of the largest public relations and advertising firms in the world. Her defining moment started when she went back to work after her third child. Then it continued when she became the chairman of Ogilvy Direct. But her final defining moment came, Ogilvy Mather had been acquired by a British company. It was a hostile takeover. And the morale was terrible, and the company was having all kinds of problems. And so she moved in. She was asked to take over managing that business, which she did. She turned everything around and really grew that company. And that she did as a result of the various steps that she went through to get to that point.
I'm really glad you mentioned that example, because I noticed that you interviewed both men and women CEOs for your book. And did you find any gender-based differences in the ways they identified and dealt with their defining moments?
No. The one thing that I was very impressed with, because most of the women CEOs had families, and they were able to be good mothers, good spouses, and at the same time run their businesses in a very professional and hard-hitting way. And it was very, very impressive. There's another CEO by the name of David Stewart, who is chairman of Worldwide Technology. David started with absolutely nothing. He worked for Federal Express. He was their top salesman. David was extremely religious and relied on the Bible and relied on God to make decisions, business decisions. And that helped give him the strength and the courage to strike out on his own. And today, he owns and runs the largest African-American-owned company in the country, and the most profitable one, I might add. But a man of really deep conviction, and someone that you really trust and have a lot of confidence in.
Do defining moments necessarily lead to successful outcomes, or do some of them involve failure?
There's a good example in my book of a company called Falcon, run by a man by the name of Frank Jacobs, who's an extremely honest, honorable man. And his business was doing well, but he had an opportunity to make an acquisition, Shelby Williams Company. And unfortunately, just as he made the acquisition, a recession took place. He also, and he readily talks about this, didn't do quite the amount of due diligence he should. He didn't have the infrastructure in place, and there were a number of other factors that came into play. He ended up losing the company. He ended up losing his business and his personal wealth. But what an incredible learning lesson for him, because today he started another company. It's housed in China, and he's just doing fine. But he got up off the floor, and he never complained, and he took full responsibility for all of his decisions. Quite a man.
Of all the stories that you heard from these different CEOs, which one surprised you the most, and why?
Well, I have an interesting story by a man by the name of Joseph Plumeri. Joseph Plumeri today is chairman and CEO of Willis Group Holdings. They're the third largest insurance brokerage company in the world. Joseph was born on the east side of New York, went to New York Law School, went to school in the morning to learn the academic side of law, but he needed a job in the afternoon to learn the practical side, but also to support himself. So the first day of class, he went looking for a job with a law firm. He had always heard that the really good law firms had 3 names. So he walked into this building, looked up on the directory, and saw 3 names: Carter, Burlett, and Wild. So he went upstairs. He said to the receptionist, "I'd like to apply for a job." So she sent him down the hall to see a Mr. Wild. He walked into Mr. Wild's office, and Mr. Wild said, "What can I do for you? Please sit down." And he said, "Well, I'd like to apply for a job." He told him, "I go to New York Law School in the morning. I want a job in the afternoon in a law firm to learn the practical side of law." Mr. Wild said, "Well, what makes you think you can learn the law here?" He said, "Well, this is a law firm, isn't it? You have 3 names." So Mr. Wild chuckled. And Joe Plumeri was very embarrassed. He sat down on this couch. He sort of sunk down. As he stood up to leave, Mr. Wild said, "No, sit back down. You interest me." They spoke, and he offered him a part-time job. His first office was a closet, literally a closet. And his first job was to go out and get people's lunch, to get their laundry, to get their cleaning. Anyway, Mr. Wild turned out to be the legendary Sandy Wild, who was really the person who was really built Citigroup and Travelers Prime America. Joe Plumeri's defining moment came when he walked into a brokerage company looking for a job in a law firm. It's the most important decision he ever made, because here's what happened. He went on to become CEO and chairman of Travelers Prime America Financial. He had responsibility for 150,000 brokers. He went on to become president of Smith Barney Shearson. He went on to become president of Shearson Lehman Brothers. He went on to become chairman and CEO of Citigroup North America, which has 450 retail branches. He's now chairman and CEO of Willis Group Holdings, as I mentioned, the 3rd largest insurance broker in the world. His advice to people is just get up off your duff, go out and do something. Go play in traffic. You never know what will happen. Look at what happened to me. Interesting story.
A very interesting
Interesting
story.
man.
So on that note, I wonder what advice you would give to a business executive who has to make a career-defining decision. What is the best way to get this right?
Best way to, in my opinion, to make a defining moment decision is to really study all the facts, to learn everything you can about the circumstances you're in, the pros and cons, the cost-benefit analysis, and then make your decision. But it's really got to be thought out.
Harlan, thank you so much for speaking to us today about your book.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.